Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing well out there. And we're going to take a trip to Amity Island once again today. But before we take that trip, do me a favor, as I always ask. Please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, share this video. I greatly would appreciate that. And I also want to thank everyone who tuned in Friday night, 8 o'clock for Horror Talk Live Episode 4. Dale_A from the Bat and Spider podcast joined me as we discussed Fright Night Part 2 from 1989. And if you want to check out that show, just go down to the live playlist and you will see it there. And please go over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and subscribe to the Bat and Spider podcast. Those guys are awesome. But today we're going to go back to the ocean at Amity Island and we're going to talk about Jaws 2. Jaws 2 dropped June 16th of 1978, 3 years after the release of the original blockbuster hit by Steven Spielberg. Rated PG, just like the original film. It's an hour and 56 minutes long. Had a budget of between $20 and $30 million, which back then was huge. Made in America, it made 81, and worldwide it made 187. So this was a nice size hit for Universal that summer. Now, this film, the original director of this film was John D. Hancock. He actually came in and started shooting. He was let go pretty soon into production. They brought Schwark in to direct the film after that. And he had done Night Gallery episodes and some other TV. He had one feature film before this named Bug. So he had been around for a little bit. So this was his big break. And Roy Scheider came back to play Chief Brody, although he didn't want to come back. We'll discuss that in a little while. Lorraine Gary came back to play Ellen Brody. Murray Hamilton came back to play Mary Vaughn. And Keith Gordon plays Doug in this film, one of the many teenagers on Amity Island that we spent some time with. And I only mention Keith Gordon because he played Arnie Cunningham and John Carpenter's awesome Christine, and he's awesome in that movie. And he's good here for what he's given to do, which isn't a whole lot, but he's probably one of the better kid actors here, teenager actors here. This film starts off with two divers diving around the wreckage of the Orca from the first film. Soon they get attacked by something. We know what it is as the audience because it's called Jaws 2, but nobody knows these two divers were attacked yet until the boat was found just with nobody on it. And eventually their camera that they were taking photos with is discovered. Now, soon after this, some more things start happening around Amity, and Brody has the camera footage developed, and he sees what clearly to him is a shark. And he takes it to the town council and the mayor, and nobody wants to see it. And Brody kind of goes off on them, and then he's let go, and he's no longer the chief. And pretty much after that, his son Mike goes out, and Sean go out in the ocean with their friends when they're not supposed to, sailing. Because in this film, they kind of were in American Graffiti. It was like the cruising culture, which I did when I was a teenager in my little town in Tamaqua, Pennsylvania. And on Amity Island, it's boating. That's their cruising, and that's how they socialize with each other. That's how they hang out with each other. They go cruising for the day, which they do. And pretty soon the shark attacks. Brody has to go out on the police boat and try to save his son. And at the end of the film, he electrocutes the shark at Cable Junction. The shark goes up in flames, sinks into the bottom of the ocean, and that's the end of Jaws 2. What to like about this film? Well, Roy Scheider back as Brody. He's excellent here. Murray Hamilton is Mayor Vaughn, although he doesn't get a ton to do. He's in the movie for a little bit, but he's not in a whole lot. It's most of this movie, especially the second half, takes place at sea, following these kids sailing, and then the shark attacking them. That's what the second half of this movie is. But Roy Scheider's great here, even though he didn't want to come back. Roy Scheider did not want to do part 2 at all, but to settle a contractual obligation with Universal, so he could do some other films, he agreed to do this film, but he didn't really want to, and he often got in heated arguments with the director on set. He was not happy, but you wouldn't know it in his performance. He gives a good performance just like he did in the first film. The shark attack sequences, there's a cool motorboat ski sequence, although it makes no sense. The lady lifts up the gas can and spilling gas all over herself and then sets off a flare. It's like, yeah, you're going to set on fire, lady. That's kind of a little weird, but I like the setup and I like the thought of the attack. I just don't like the execution of it completely because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense why she would douse herself with gasoline and then set off the flare. That just doesn't make any sense. But I like some of the interactions with the kids. They don't annoy me. It's fine. Not all the kids are great actors here. Keith Gordon's probably the best, but it's fine. I mean, we spend a good chunk with them, like I said, in the second half of the film. The way they dispatch the shark, electrocuting it, it's okay. I like the way they dispatch it in the first one, but it's okay here. It's certainly better than what comes later after this sequel, in the later sequels, which I'm going to re-review Jaws 4. I'm going to watch it tonight, and I'm going to have it out later this week. Where this movie comes up short is, I think Jano Schwartz does a pretty good job with the action sequences, but they're still not as good or well handled as the Spielberg-directed masterpiece, Jaws. It's fine. I always have enjoyed this film. It's a good sequel. Is it as good as the original? Of course it's not. But you do see more of the shark, especially once the kids get out in the ocean, and more people get eaten here than they do in the original film. They take the helicopter under. Jaws takes the helicopter underwater. That's a pretty cool scene. The whole Cable Junction thing, the island thing is okay. I don't mind that. I think this film's a little too long, though. It's an hour and 56 minutes long, and I think you could shave off at least 10 minutes off this film. If it moved faster, the score would probably even go up on this one. I think it's a detriment to this. I think there's a lot of just dead space. Because honestly, besides Brody, there's nobody else to really, like, in the first one, I mean, we had Hooper and Quint and Brody when they go out on this adventure to hunt the shark for the second half of the latter half of the film. Here, the kids are okay, but it's not as interesting as that original film. So the story's not as strong here. Schwartz does what he can to keep the pace moving, but I think it's still about 10 minutes too long in this film. And I mean, when you watch it, I mean, it pales in comparison to the first film. It's a fine sequel. It's a fun sequel. There's some fun things here. It's just when you have a perfect movie, as I consider the original Jaws to be, there are no sequels ever going to become close, especially with Spielberg not coming back. They did offer for Spielberg to come back, and Richard Dreyfuss. They were working on Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but Spielberg was against doing a sequel. He was like, no, I'm not doing it. And Dreyfuss was busy with him on that movie anyway, but he didn't want to come back either. So, like I said, Roy Scheider did not have a good time. He got in arguments with the director all the time on set. When Brody's going into the house on his front porch, there's one of the yellow barrels from the first film. If you look closely, when him and his wife, actually, you don't even look that closely. You could see it. It's in a wide shot. You could see the barrel sitting on their front porch. That's a cool touch. At the end of the day, and Cable Junction was made out of fiberglass and plastic, and it was built on two barges that they had to go out and anchor on the ocean, on the open water, to film in it towards the end. And at one point, it came loose from its anchorage, and it started floating towards Cuba, so they had to go out and get him and bring it back to where they were going to shoot the finale. So I thought that was pretty funny. But overall, this is an okay sequel. It's a fun sequel. I've watched this many times over the years. It's definitely better than the sequels that come after it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't hold a candle to the original film, which I consider a perfect movie. But I would give Jaws 2 a 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 for Jaws 2. What are your thoughts on this sequel? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Share this video. I would appreciate that. I'll be back soon with a review for Jaws 4: The Revenge. But until next time, bye.